No! No! No!
What is up, Ghost? Welcome back to the Horror Pop Extravaganza. Yeah. Listen, I want to start this show by saying to you, the new people that subscribed and jumped on over these last couple weeks, thank you. Don't know how else to say it outside of thank you. We are so happy to have you here at the Horror Pop Extravaganza. And if you are one of those new people, this is your first time. This is where the macabre meets the mindful. We talk about a little bit of scary. Hopefully some scary. Sometimes I don't even know if it's really scary or not. I don't know what we're watching. But then at the end of each episode, we bring in a mindful moment, an idea, a thought, or something that we can discuss to make us all a little bit more collectively just calm as a people. So we meet you with peace, love, and kindness. I am Pops Ghostly, and with me today I have
Hamish Anus Ham.
Hamish Anus Ham. Anus Ham.
That's right.
Oh,
Nice to be here.
it's great to have you. That one just like it's too image inducing. But like some of them, I am a creative person. I enjoy creativity. And you can throw words at me and they quickly build into images in my head. And that one I didn't like. I don't like being there. I'm just gonna let that float away down the thought river and it's gonna be gone forever.
Is
Hey,
it the Hamish?
no. It's not. So Heyman, maybe it is. Maybe it's because it becomes before anus ham.
Anus Ham.
Okay. Hamish. It's
Yes.
so good to be here with you today.
It's so great to be here.
We are bringing an interesting one to the table.
I'm glad you think so.
This is one as soon as it opened up, because you had texted me. You're like, hey, first you say you're like, I'm behind.
I'm not happy.
You're like, I'm I'm having a hard time. You're about
45 minutes in, I texted you.
and then a half hour after that, you're like, fuck, bro, I'm watching this new Predator thing. You're like, is it? I hope you have something to bring to the table with this movie because I'm having a really hard time with it. I was 2 minutes into it and immediately was like, this is divisive. I know right out of the gate. First, you open with A24. That's already a divisive thing. People are usually in one camp or the other on that. I'm one of those kind of middle ground where I pick and choose the shit that I like that they've done. But they tend to be a little more in your face.
Yeah.
As far as maybe the ideology of stuff. Art house, surrealism. It's a different type of cinema that I don't know a lot of people are hyper familiar with. And so when you experience it, it's like, this is fucking weird. I don't get it. Why is this so weird? I grew up being a David Lynch fan and shit. Like the first time I saw Eraserhead, I was like, just fucking make weird pictures. Just put them all over. It's fine. I'll get there. Now, when you text me in light of that, and this is what I think the commitment that I'm trying to give to people, and doing this is I took a big list of notes so that we would have some things to discuss because I do feel there is a lot going on in this, and I don't remember the lead actor's name, but I really like this kid. I've been watching him since I think it was The Get Down on Netflix, and really fucking cool little mini series all about the birth of hip hop in New York, like Grandmaster Flash and everybody's there and they're playing these different characters and he's a DJ and this other kid. It was good. And then he showed up in like Jurassic Park and started getting some bigger roles and stuff like that. But always enjoyed him.
I remember him from Detective Pikachu.
Oh, that's right. And he did a great job. I like Detective Pikachu. I don't care, man. People were I thought the Pokemon looked great.
I thought it looked great too.
I thought you made awesome looking Pokemon on the screen and you did a cool thing. So if you haven't figured it out after that last little bit, or that we key it up, if this is your first time, you might not know, we key it up at the end of every week to let you know what's coming next. So if you want to get down on the movie, you can. We are talking about 2024's I Saw the TV Glow. Glowy, creepy. This had been on my radar since it came out. only because it was divisive. It was one of those things where I saw both sides and people were, yelling at this way or another. A couple of trans friends of mine were like, yo, I really liked it. It's, big in I knew that going into it. I knew there was going to be some trans element because, like I said, a couple of like good friends of mine told me, they're like, oh, yeah, because I talk about the podcast and shit. I'm like, oh, yeah, we're going to talk about that movie, blah, blah, blah. And I went into it really trying to expect nothing, really trying. I've been trying hard to just take it as it comes, without so and so's opinion in my head of who might have recommended it or who hyped it up or whatever. Try to go into it. My wife and youngest are in Ohio this week for a graduation party and seeing her parents. So I had the house all to myself last night, and I just sat on the couch, turned it up, turned it loud, and just sat there and kind of got buried in this thing. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Well, why don't you IMDb? Do the IMDb, and then, or did you have something you want to put in real quick before the IMDb?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that like I don't like to contact you mid-movie. I very rarely do that. We very rarely speak about what we thought of the movie
until we get here.
We get here and record. With this one, I was kind of trying to get out of it.
And I think it was also smart though in this regard, because I do think I have a lot to talk about.
And I'm excited for that. I'm excited to talk about this movie because I didn't get it.
Right. So my buddy Jason and I'm a fucking amazing, like one of my best friends that I've ever had throughout life, like one of the closest relationships I've had throughout life. We just got back from seeing Bring Her Back,
yeah,
A24 thing or A24, whatever it is. And I walked out of that movie and was kind of talking to him about some of the shit that I was pulling out of this one last night. And he's like, you see movies different than I do. I was like, that's cool.
You see more different movies than a lot of people do,
And I think we all see it a little bit different, and that's what makes Movie Celebration cool. And maybe, if you're somebody who really liked this movie, I want people to start throwing things in the comments. As much as I never expected I'd be sitting here doing a YouTube show, I'm trying to do it the correct way, what I think, and just provide good shit to people. But I would like to hear that, what are your thoughts on this one, especially it being, divisive almost across the board. Okay, IMDb. Lay it on me while I hit my delicious. I think this is like a blueberry flavor.
Pretty.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
All right, I saw the TV Glow 2024 PG-13, 1 hour and 40 minutes. That just felt so fucking long.
How I felt about the one today too, which is weird now that you say that out loud, because I'm pretty sure the one today clocked in at 139. So I wonder if they're right now, like that's the tolerable level in the cinema.
Magic formula, yeah.
Right, yeah.
This was directed by Jane Schoenbrun. Written by Justice Smith, Jack Haven, and Ian Foreman, which surprises me because we always talk about how when something's weird, the writer is always the director, and it's not the case this time.
Right.
Our top cast, Justice Smith is Owen. Okay, so the actor was a writer on it.
Right. So, which maybe, just lending things. I can imagine to get this thing made, there was a lot of weird ideas floating around all over. And I'm sure maybe he contributed, enough to the total production that maybe he got a writing credit, but good on
him. Jack Haven played Maddie.
Okay.
Which surprised me. That means, I don't know. We should look into this because
what the pronoun should be.
She plays a female character, but it's Jack Haven. So I'm not sure.
Right.
What the pronoun is on that one.
Forgive us if we get them wrong.
Yeah. I mean,
we're trying. We do try.
Right. Yeah. Ian Foreman played young Owen. Helena Howard played Isabel.
I like young Owen. I thought young Owen, that little kid did a great job.
That kid did a great job, yeah.
That's a hard thing to carry, that, feel empty.
Totally.
Yeah.
Lindsay Jordan played Tara. Danielle Deadweiler played Brenda. The amazing Fred Durst played Frank.
Wait, I didn't know that.
Yeah, his dad was Fred Durst.
Oh, yeah. He was always very well. First, I think he only has one line, maybe in the whole thing, but he's always kind of far away jacked up. Yeah, this. I mean, like it's very surreal. It is.
Yeah.
This whole movie is very surreal.
Yes, it is. And then Amber Benson came back. She was from like those 90s teen shows, and she played Johnny Link's mom.
Okay, so the where he kept going pretending to stay the night.
Right, exactly.
Gotcha. All
All
right.
right, you ready to hear what this is about?
I would love to hear what IMDb thinks this thing is about.
They don't get it right when it's a easily talked about film. So with this, let's see. A teenager just trying to make it through life in the suburbs is introduced by a classmate to a mysterious late night TV show. The end.
Right. It does not prepare you at all for this. I mean, it's there, but
That's in there.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I just don't know if that's enough. I would say you're never going to know what's real and what's not. There's a weird TV show and lots of ideas going on. It's
Mhm.
not going to make sense at the end.
Mm-mm. Or
I,
at the beginning or in the middle.
now, I think there are some, so I think I did hopefully a relatively decent job. And the thing is with this too is I'm going to try from now on to do this as I'm watching is to take some notes because I think that'll help maybe tie in some of the mindfulness stuff. But I'm not going off of anybody else's reviews, anything like that. Like this is just my opinion and what I think might have been pulled from that. The nature of art is subjective. People are going to take away different things. So these are just my, opinions. But it was kind of fun to sit there and, be like, oh, okay, that idea is something deeper, especially with something like this, where I
Let
feel you
me let
watch
me
it.
let me throw this at you real fast because I was trying to find what was my generation's version of this movie because I was like, obviously this movie isn't for a 47-year-old white dude.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I was like, okay, is this like a Donnie Darko?
That's where I landed. I
Okay,
landed with
okay, you made
Donnie
that connection
Darko
too.
feelings. Yeah, I
Okay.
actually have it in my notes. Felt some Donnie Darko influence. Where you, because this is takes place 96, I think, when he's walking through the halls like class of 96 or some shit like that. But I did feel the Donnie Darko, as far as the pink opaque, I felt Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Charmed, those shows that were kind of really big, Angel, all of that shit with like, oh, we're connected and we're this and, campy effects and things like that. I did see some of that. Um, but overall, Donnie Darko was the closest thing I could get to because watching that movie, you still don't. Its narrative follows, I think, a little deeper.
Mhm.
Its world is bigger. You've got
Right.
Patrick Swayze, you've got his sister, you've got all these other players that a lot of things are happening to. Whereas in this, we really just follow Owen. It's that story for the most part. I think we get some other things. But I don't know that in our generation, didn't have the trans movement like we have it now. And those things, I think, coming to art, because art is always usually some sort of reflection of, society and trying to understand what's going on in our society and things like that. And I was just tattooing a really good buddy of mine who happens to be a gay man. Like he's an awesome fucking dude. You know what I mean? We were talking about that too. He's like, I'm so much more, but still sometimes people be like, oh, this is so and so, my gay friend. And it's like, that's not fucking like I'm a
Yeah,
million
you don't be like, hey,
else.
this is Joe, my straight friend.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But we were talking about a lot of things in our experience because we graduated high school together, and his experience going through a lot of stuff, and even now as this continues to evolve, I think we will see it reflected in the art here and there. But this, and I even put it down in my notes, and I hope it doesn't come across as like ignorant or anything like that. This to me felt like a therapy film. Like somebody was pouring out all of their pain, even if they didn't fully understand it or have dealt with it. And I think they did it in a good way. And we'll get to some of that. But it felt like, angry writing, like or angry filmmaking, or maybe not angry is the wrong word, very emotional, but just putting the emotions on display for others to observe without necessarily addressing why the emotion to begin with.
Right.
And so there, I don't know. I took a lot of weight. Like you said, I don't know if this is truly aimed at me. is where I'm at in life right now. But there was a lot that I think I grabbed onto and I was like, yo, that kind of was me in a little bit. And we'll get into that. So let's talk about the fucking movie. Let me get a drink of water first.
All right, you drink the water.
Yes.
I'm gonna just say that when I went into this movie, like I had such a hard time. I compared it to Donnie Darko, and I was thinking
Remember what
like
we said though, comparison is the mother of suffering.
totally, dude. Like I am afraid to be on this episode because I'm so scared of saying something stupid or ignorant because this movie wasn't for me, and so I don't want to say that like this movie's crap because it's not that.
No.
What it's doing 150% what it's doing.
Right.
Just didn't connect with me. But that's not to
And
say that,
that's right. And you know, I feel much more comfortable, I think, in this space of observing something and not having to have, you know, looking what the merits, just identifying the merits, even if something is not necessarily for me. And I think this had some great ideas. You know, I just what did I just buy? It was on sale on Apple TV. I bought the cartoon Pirates of Dark Water. I don't know if you remember that shit.
yeah, that's a great show.
It was amazing. There are things I can still go back and connect to that are made for children, you know, like Gargoyles hits me on a fucking level that's, I don't know, dude. I can't really explain it. Batman the animated series, there, you know, it's there. So even though that wasn't made for kids originally, it aired a little bit later at first. But I think the ability to observe a piece of art like this, and you know, I hear what you're saying about I'm afraid to say something ignorant. We need to have these conversations more so that it's not, I'm afraid to say, you know what I mean?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And
And that's what like so I'm gonna say it without being afraid is that I watched Donnie Darko, or I thought about Donnie Darko while I was watching this, and I was thinking to myself, oh, Donnie Darko was about a bunch of white kids, and this isn't. Am I a racist, ignorant fuck from the that's stuck in the 90s? Like, is that why I like it? And I didn't like this? Is there something wrong with me? Like, I
I
was like, oh
don't,
fuck.
I think Donnie Darko, though, spoke to that same unacceptedness and that same outcastedness and that being
Right.
being not home in your own body, feeling
Mhm.
like you are. And let's talk about the movie because I got a
Yeah,
lot of
let's
this
yeah,
shit. I
let's
got a
just
lot
go
of this
through it.
shit ready to go.
Yeah.
So we open up, I think on the street with a bunch of little ghosts and shit drawn all over. I will probably get all of this out of order in one way or another because it's very disjointed and the movie challenges you. It breaks the fourth wall a couple times. Is
Mhm.
anything real? Is what you're doing real? Is this real? At its core, I what I took away from this movie is it is about, which is something I felt before, that complete apathy, that emptiness. You know, you don't know who you are, and his struggle as he goes on, I think, is never fully accepting who he was, and it deteriorates him from the inside out. He holds on to this little glimmer, and we'll get to some of that. But we open up on this street and we see these cool drawings of shit, super well shot, super, the cinematography was great, acting good. And we end up with little Owen sitting in front of the television set and it's blinking in his face. He sees an ad that's on young adult TV. He's not allowed to stay up late, but he sees an ad for Pink Opaque, which is the Charmed or Buffy the Vampire Slayer fill-in for a 90s kid who, some kids, it was the X-Files. For other kids, it was this. We were a generation that was kind of really, I think, like the first latchkey generation who was like, yo, you get home from school, you make your own fucking lunch, there's dinner in the fridge, I'll be home after work, you took care of yourself kind of fucking relatively early on. And that idea of connecting to the television, I felt strongly because
Yeah.
that flicker is where I ran away to.
Hmm.
It was the babysitter, it was the mentor, it was the teacher in a lot of ways, dude. And I have to be honest about that. I have to be honest with myself and look back and say, I did bury myself, especially in scary things, because scary things are the greatest escapism. You can feel afraid, but from a safe distance. There's atmosphere between you and the screen. And so when he sat down and saw this thing that enamored him, I remember like that specifically. Like I want to stay up late. I remember seeing Natural Born Killers on the wall at the video store and looking at it for months and just fantasizing about what this new world. because it took me out of the situation I was in. Not to say my situation was like terrible and like fucking awful all the time, but I
Right.
think when you're a little kid, you're just like, fuck, I'm 8 years old and I'm, home alone. And so I got that. And the first line that I picked up, I had to go back and find it. When he's watching the trailer, there's something she says that, forgive me, I'm looking for it here. Um, it was. Oh, and seems a story of escapism through media comes and finding a home in a fictional world. But there is something she said right there, and I'll get to it. I'll find it in my notes somewhere. But it's if you don't acknowledge it, they can't get you. And I felt that too. It was the when I'm in the fake world, you don't have to deal with your own emotions
Right.
when you're in this fantasy land. And there is something in this movie too about romanticizing our past. He eventually feels it in a different way. Like you said, this isn't for me, this isn't for you now, it's for that early angsty, confused teenage leading into adulthood, maybe even younger, for some people, because I think he has some sort of a mental disability. He seems his social cues are super off. Like it's not just maybe transitioning, because there were the episodes where he, laying in the back of the car is like an adult on his mom's lap and stuff like that. Or the when he went to his friend's house, Justin's house, after he had scrubbed the thing off his neck, and he's like, "Don't make me go, don't make me go. She wants to take me away." It just seemed, I don't know if it was meant to be that, but I picked up a little bit of that was in there as well. But he's watching the TV, falls in love with this idea of the pink opaque, and goes to school maybe the next day and sees a girl reading a book about it. He meets Maddie and reading the book about the pink opaque. Maddie's like, "Hey, you ever see the show?" And he's like, "Oh no, I want to." And again, super fucking awkward. Both of these kids. I saw this idea of two complete loners being close but separated at the same time.
And I found this too. This is a part that I could go back to and connect with when I was that age and I was trying to find myself and my group and where I fit. And I did feel really alone. And what changed everything for me, and I think this was more in the 90s, was that music determined who you were, what you liked, and what group you wanted to
Yeah.
be in. And I found rock music, and I found this other dude that sat at the back of the bus,
Who liked rock music.
saw me in a Guns N' Roses shirt one day and was like, "Hey, dude, you like Guns N' Roses? You want to come to my house and listen to some music?" And that was how we connected. And we were two total like losers, kind of to other people. We thought we were cool,
Right, right, right. And
but
that's
we connected on this one thing, and it was music, and it didn't matter. But that was our whole thing. Then like our clothes became that, and our ideas became that. And if you liked Backstreet Boys, you were a chump. And we were awesome because we were listening to like Korn and shit.
right. And
You know,
that is sorry, I'll have to cut this out. Somebody's trying to FaceTime and I don't know if you guys can hear it. Maybe not. I'll just let it run. Fuck it.
I can't hear anything.
Okay, perfect. So, but I get that. You're right. It was the identity became you took on the identity of that
Yeah. Like I
that
wasn't wearing those clothes until I found that connection with another person. And we literally, there was a place called Trails in Phoenix, and that was the only place you could get like cool ass band shirts.
right.
And we took all our brand new jeans that our moms bought us and we fucked them up and we cut holes in them and shit. My mom was so fucking pissed, dude.
I'm sure.
But yeah, but that became everything.
And that's another note I had in here because the dad relationship is established really quickly that it's non-existent,
Right.
pretty much. Yeah, the dad relationship is non-existent. And I think the only words we hear Owen's dad say is, "Isn't that a girl show?"
Yeah.
Because he's laying on his mom's lap in the back of the car. We see her with a cancer wrap on, and she's struggling. I liked this moment too, where she's like, "I just want to know that you're going to be okay, that
Yeah.
you're on the right path, that you're going in the right direction," which he really doesn't. But
Right.
that comes later. Him and Maddie, he pretends to sleep over at Justin's house and then goes over to Maddie's, spends the night there. and meets Isabella just for a moment. I don't think Isabella's around for long, and ends up staying there and continuing that behavior, going over to watch the Pink Palace. Meanwhile, the world around him seems extraordinarily empty. It
Hmm.
and by the time I got to the end of this thing, I don't know if Maddie was even real. I think that might have been the competing gender identity and that he could never agree with.
Hmm.
Because you get to the end, and we're going to spoil the shit out of this thing, even though I don't think you can really spoil it because you could watch it and you're going to extrapolate completely different ideas. But you get to the end, and he keeps saying Maddie, and they reply, "That's not my name. That's not my name. I had to kill myself." And a lot of my trans people in my life I know have a dead name and kind of a dead identity. And so I wonder if that wasn't Maddie wasn't a manifestation of his own internal, turmoil. Now he was at the house, but then it's like, oh, I've been gone in the fucking show for 10 years. I've disappeared. So there's a lot. I don't think you can trust anything in this as reality. I
Right.
think it's supposed to make you feel, and it does a good job at that, whether it makes you feel right, wrong, or indifferent. But I don't know that I ever, by the end of it, was like, oh yeah, I trust this or I trust that. But I did, grab onto certain ideas. Had his dad been there, and we talk about this a lot in society, had the father figure been there, would it have changed the outcome? Because he was left alone at home. And that's the worst thing that a kid can, I think, experience. I also liked the mirror image. We never really got to see the dad much, but we saw him sitting in front of the TV glow. He was
Hmm.
also lost in this reality. And is this a commentary on our overconsumption of media? Maybe, that we sit in front of it and it becomes so much of who we are. It's like painting us in a way. Every image that flickers is leaving a layer of something on you, one way or another. I don't know. I could just be pulling that shit out of my ass.
No, I really like that idea, and I think that you're right there. And it's almost gross.
Yeah,
And that goes back to like the 90s sitcoms and stuff, that we were watching.
the laugh tracks that taught us what was
Yeah,
funny
dude,
and
it taught
taught
us
us.
when to laugh, man, and what to think and where our moral values should be. Our, these Family Matters and Full House and all this shit, our Friday night TGIF fix of what our family was supposed to look like and never looked like.
No,
Nobody's families look like those families, but you kind of wanted them to be.
I wanted to be a dinosaur with the Sinclair family my whole life, and I never got to be that. But I do feel I learned. But you're right, man. It is the laugh tracks, and the tease almost, and everything was funded by advertisers who are again then trying to sell you something, but in even more manipulative way. That are like, okay, our brand is in line with the Family Matters values or with the whatever Full House values, step by step values, line it up with that. And, Disney owns ABC, and that motherfucker's got cradle to the grave marketing, dude. From the moment you're born till the moment you die, there is a value assigned to you.
Mickey's dick is up your ass.
Oh boy. Oh, it's like a gangbang in here. So,
Not real kids. Let's sing the hot dog song.
right.
What was your show back then that was like, because you mentioned Buffy and all those shows and
Mhm.
Angel and all those were considered trash TV to my generation. Like
I
we had
didn't,
TV that was
yeah,
cool
I
and
didn't
then
have
that
one of
wasn't.
those. I didn't have one of those shows really at that age. It was dinosaurs, Family Matters, those kind of things. But once I got into high school, as far as I was so deep into movies for like, I never jumped on Buffy. I never jumped on any of those. I've gone back and watched them just for cultural relevance. And if it was on TV, I would turn it on. But I was more like fucking even in high school, like give me Batman the animated series and
Yeah.
Samurai Jack and shit. Like I was in
I was I was into all that shit too, and that stuff was like acceptable and cool. My deep, dark secret that was just the same as cross-dressing, dude, was Dawson's Creek.
I don't want
I was a huge Dawson's Creek fan, and there was like little people in my life that like I admitted it to,
to wait.
but
Right.
everybody else I kept out of fucking see. Even my best friend, who's my rock and roll friend, I
Yeah.
did not tell him about fucking Dawson's Creek. He's like, "Bro, where are you every Monday night at 8 o'clock?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just hanging out, drinking a few beers."
Right.
And it was
That is the world we lived in. that is the world we lived in where and I think, this also is a great portrayal of how deep that goes. That
Right.
fandom and that attachment to I am this, so I can't be that.
Right. That's exactly it for me.
Yeah.
I was embarrassed of my favorite show.
And now I don't think I was ever. I mean, I would talk about weird shit to everybody. I'd be like, "Yo, you watch fuck Cannibal Holocaust or Freeway?" I was always peddling Requiem for a Dream or weird shit like that on people. But they just kind of were like, "What is it with you and your fucking weird movies?" I don't know. I guess but never really big any, like I said, around that time, I was working in a movie theater. Movies were kind of everything to me. And in a lot of ways, that has been the hardest relationship in my life to sever, to be
Yeah.
like, I am not a movie guy. Like, that's not what I am, because for so long I held on to that, like
You
this
literally had a podcast.
called Those Movie Guys.
Exactly.
But it was my value, and you
I
talk
know,
about
I know that how it
the
feels.
shirts and stuff, and I think I mentioned this before, in that I've got all them shirts I'm going to sell that I would love to wear. I would love to wear them, but I don't want people to see that and make an assumption, and maybe hinder my ability to form a relationship with this person. Oh, fucking weirdo with a creepy shirt. Oh, he's got a fucking metal band shirt on. Oh, he's got the fucking this. Most of the times they look at me like, "What the fuck are you wearing?" I'm like, "Camo shorts." Fucking, I didn't have sunglasses. I forgot them because I took my wife's car when I went down to Port Huron last week, and I had a pair of her heart sunglasses that were too small for my face. I was rocking
Yeah.
them everywhere. I was like,
I saw those, dude. Those were hot fire.
I feel, because that's the thing, is when your vessel's empty, it doesn't really matter, I guess, or when you try to leave it relatively empty. But when you identify with those things, and that's where I feel this movie also struggles, because it never really addressed, why do we have to label everything so concretely? And I think
Right.
that's a conversation we're not having either. Is, why does everything have to be so solid? Like, I am this, I am that. Whereas, just like, I don't know, man. I feel like if I am nothing, then life is just so much fucking easier and cooler.
100%.
Everything can be as exciting. I don't have to, oh yeah, I wear this because I want to make sure. In some ways, I think it's our defense. We wear it so that
Yeah.
certain people don't approach me, and I don't have to have certain conversations with certain people, and I don't.
That's my problem with the pronouns, and this is where like I might be
Yeah,
talking with my ass here, but
that's
I'm
okay.
just saying, like, why do we have to have these pronouns? Like at my last job, they wanted us to have a pronoun on our badge, and a lot of people fought against that,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to be a dick and fight against it, but at the same time, I'm like, why do we have to have these labels fucking printed out right on our shirts that say we're this or we're that?
Corporate response is weird. Corporate response is always weird to shit like this. It'll go back and forth. If you look at it historically, organizations will just brand themselves with whatever is going to get the people to spend the money, the right people to spend the money.
Remember when Safeway they had to smile at you in Safeway, and it was so fucking creepy to go in there.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, big money like that is always going to just go wherever the big money goes for the most part. But even with, the pronoun stuff, for me, and most of my trans friends, people who, are advocates for trans rights and things like this, they're like, I would, even if you just ask, like, hey, what do you prefer to be called? And that is the act. It's not, I've never met a trans person and I'm on my couch like, I don't want to use a fucking pronoun because blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
It's like, I ask people to call me not my name all the time. I ask people to call me Pops Ghostly. Like, I've gotten in the habit of it. I'm like, I really, yeah, Joe is reserved for a very fucking special few people that I open up completely to and I'm completely vulnerable with. Pops Ghostly isn't a defense against that, but I feel it is the name that represents the person I'm trying to be right now.
Mhm.
And that is a kindness ghost. And how I came to it, I don't fucking, it's an old video game that influenced me when I was a child that apparently doesn't even exist anymore. You can watch the whole movie, fucking Pops Ghostly, The Rescue of Pops Ghostly. Um, so and I guess I kind of see it like, who cares? Like, it's
Right.
hard for me. It's hard for me in that regard to, why not just ask somebody, hey, do you prefer to be called this, that, or the other? I've known so many people in my life, and maybe it's a military thing where we all called each other fucking different things than what your name was or what this was. Um, but I do think there is we are very lost. We've lost our sense of community as a society in a lot of ways, and we want so bad a sense of self. We want so bad a sense of self that we hold on to it with a ferocity that is, we talked about this before, and I've mentioned it to some other people. They look at me. I had somebody tell me earlier this week, how many hallucinogenics do you take on a weekly basis? And I'm like, I fucking don't. I was like, who knows? I might here or there, but that's not where any of this comes from. It's not any of that. So I don't even see like I don't even see myself as like a man. Like I could give you an idea of what a perception of I think a man should be, but to look and say I'm all man is to deny the fact that I was, came out of my mother, like straight out of a vagina. Without one, I would not be here. Came sliding out. So am I not that much woman? You know what I mean? And so I don't know. I don't think really any labels do us any good. Any identity, I just don't see the value in it anymore. I think it's good for a conversation. But
Yeah.
outside of that, it's
So many dudes get together and they start talking football, and I immediately have to like shadow to the back, and just become a nothing because I don't fucking like football. I never have, dude, and I've always struggled with that.
yeah.
There's always been a group of guys that start talking about fucking football, and then I'm just like left out, and they're like, "Who's your team, bro?" And
See,
then when they find out I don't have a team, then I'm less than they are.
right. And that I think is both sides equally in the wrong if I
Right.
to observe it, because for you feel afraid that you don't identify with this thing. For them, they probably it is the defense or the go-to thing, so we don't got to talk about deeper, realer, emotional things and bigger ideas and stuff like that. But I think maybe if you just approach it and be like, yo, I've never really dug on it, like, teach me about that shit. Could you show me something? And maybe you'll find something there. But the honesty, present just in honesty. I've
Right.
never really dug on it. I don't know. Who's your team? I never really had one. I don't really know a lot about football. Maybe you could teach me a little bit. And then you're just conversating and meeting on a level ground. And that's a lot easier, though, one on one. Way easier one on one. You put two people from the exact opposite ideologies across from a table each other, 9 times out of 10, after a couple hours, they're going to be okay with each other.
Mhm.
But as soon as the group shit starts, it gets scarier.
Yeah, totally, dude.
Scarier. And one of the things that has scared me as an adult more than anything else in my life is mob mentality.
Yeah,
That
totally, dude.
fucking
Because
freaks
I've
me
seen
out.
it. We're seeing it right now, like in the
Yeah.
news and shit.
I've been in it, dude. I've been in parts of it in like countries and shit where things are getting loud and it's like, whoa, and if people gravitate towards that and but that scares me. Anyway, I don't know where we're at. The movie. Yes, we're back to I saw the TV glow. Again, I don't know how to talk about it though without really just getting into a lot of these ideas that I pulled away from him. The big bad I liked, and this is what I was like, okay, this is truly a mental health movie. Mr. Melancholy. And I pulled the definition for melancholy. Where did it go? A feeling of pensive sadness, typically with no obvious cause.
Hmm.
One more time. A feeling of pensive sadness. So pent up sadness with no obvious cause. He is the villain. They even call him the big bad. They call Mr. Melancholy the big bad. And that's what I think Owen is going through by not being able to join those two parts of the self that need to come together to be the new identity. And Mr. Melancholy is a feeling, I think a lot of people struggle with. And if you have, the suicide awareness 9 is 988 suicide help, 988. If you need that, please fucking call that number. If you need that number, call it. Um, because I think this is a picture of someone who is that completely empty of everything, doesn't know love, doesn't know pain, doesn't know anything whatsoever, and builds a shell around that is the pink opaque, almost touches it a couple times,
Right.
almost gets close to accepting. And then we see the flashbacks of him in the dress. And I don't know. And again, though, I when we see Maddie walking with Owen on the football field and stuff, she's a guide almost like I'm here. Yes, I'm the part of you that wants to be this new creation. but was him the whole time. I don't know if he was alone on that football field, maybe walking with the dress on and trying to figure it out and just being brave the first couple times, because we do see him not only at home isolated, we see in school completely isolated, where the world. I thought it was a cool sequence where she left him VHS tapes of every episode. She would
Mhm.
leave him in the dark room for him to go back and watch that she had recorded. And when he's walking, all of the ideas of the pink opaque, the summaries and stuff are being written around him. It's like his head is coming alive. He's only living in this. And they all erase real quick when some other students will come by, and he shrinks away, stops walking as strutfully. The confidence is almost all gone. And then when they pass by, his back straightens a little, and then he's lost again in his world of the pink opaque. He doesn't exist in this world. He's just a figure in that world, or just so obsessed with it that there is nothing else, you know.
A problem for me with this movie, I think, was that it had no joy. Its main character had, I was like, what is this guy's reason for even getting up in the morning? And I could not wrap my head around it. And I guess it was the pink opaque was his only reason for going on. But man, it was a struggle to fucking watch this kid struggle.
That's where I felt it was more of a therapy project, because I don't think a lot of the outcomes were shown where you can deal with your life, in certain ways, and it doesn't have to be. And I didn't see a lot of, and maybe that was part of it too, ownership on Owen's part. It
Yeah, no, he was
was
just disconnected from himself and he was just
complete,
a
and
ghost of a person.
disconnection is scary, man. Being
Yeah.
disassociation is something, again, I would never wish on anyone. When you feel, I think he even says it, I feel like I'm watching a movie of my own life. And you read about disassociation, people who, when I met Kevin Smith, he had just gone through his big thing where he went down, quit smoking weed, because he expressed it. He's like, I was disassociated to the place where, and I know he just didn't say it, but he's probably gonna fucking kill himself,
Yeah.
because when you get to that point, it is like, that's not good, man. Disassociation is never good. And he even brings that up. I feel like I'm watching, and his mom passes away. He just continues with the pink opaque. Maddie tries to get him to run away, draws the pink opaque ghost on the back of his neck, tries to get him to take off with her. She expresses something also about a bad home life, maybe her stepdad, or like I don't think it was maybe abusive, but they just didn't care.
No,
She
it
said
was.
something.
If
Oh,
she said if my dad catches you down here, he's gonna break my nose again.
oh, right. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And she said, though, they, or alluded to, they just didn't care.
Right.
They didn't really. And again, that was our generation in a lot of ways. That was the 80s and the 90s. And it is not our parents' fault. Like, don't be like, oh, it's my fucking parents specifically. It was a whole society that collectively agreed we are going to act in this way. It was not uncommon. You went home with your little key on your backpack. You knew the bus drivers fucking knew that nobody was going to be there and shit. You did that. You walked yourself to the bus. I mean, we walked half a mile at 8 years old, 9 years old. Went down there, and my brother used to go hide in the fucking woods till my parents left, and then he'd go back home and just hang out.
I would forget my key and I would have to sit in a fucking cold Jeep because you couldn't lock the Jeep door, you know?
Yeah,
I'd sit in a fucking Jeep to stay out of the cold and I just sit there and shiver until my dad came home like 2 hours later.
right. And then you
And
go.
they weren't even like, hey, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Why didn't you call me? You cell
You were
phone?
called a dumbass. Like, why'd
Yeah,
you
you
forget your
dumbass, why'd
key,
you forget your
dummy?
key?
You're right. Why'd you forget your key?
I'd climb up on the roof and try to pry off the upstairs window so that I could climb in the bathroom window.
Any way that you could.
And then I think if I just did that, why isn't a burglar doing that?
Right.
Well, I couldn't sleep.
So the disassociation was a big piece. He is living at home with his dad, but they have no relationship whatsoever. Dad is just, at one point it's creepy. It's the faces are moving a little bit and stuff is disjointed. What's reality? What's not? But Maddie ends up taking off and she just disappears. I think we see something on the news. Local girl
She
gone.
was missing. Yeah, yeah. They're roping off her house as a crime scene.
Right. And she is completely out of the picture now. He gets a job at the movie theater, which I was like, is he trying to get closer to the glow? Is that what I was doing as a kid?
Yeah.
trying to get closer to that fantasy world where I can escape from the fucking pain that's in me all the time, the confusion that's in me all the time. So I did wonder, maybe, is that the job he chose because of that? And then he walks on his coworker getting blown and is super awkward and won't even look him in the eyes. Like the dude is talking to him. He's like, "You fucking want some, man? Like I can get her to fucking hook you up and blah, 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 blah." But before Maddie left, I think she says something about being, I like girls, I'm a lesbian. Like, what do you like? And he's like, TV shows. I like
Yeah.
the pink opaque. And that was the full, like, and maybe that is, no gender identity, but it seemed to be focused on that gender piece because they were talking about her gender identity.
Hmm.
And she ends up disappearing. He works at the thing. Super, like you said, it's uncomfortable to watch. It's awkward, but there
Yeah.
are people like this that go through life like this, and we have to reach out and be like, "Are you okay?" Even if I don't fucking agree with you on your whatever. But again, like Bruce Lee said, one of our favorite fucking philosophical heroes. Do you want to be known? I love watching that clip, dude. Bruce, do you want to be known as a Chinese or an American superstar? I want to be known as human being. And that's it. See someone as a human being. Are you suffering? And don't be a fucking dick about it. Oh, hey, you want this girl to blow you? Look at me when I'm talking to you. And he's just got his eyes down, eating his sandwich in the back of the thing. And then he wanders around home, goes back. And let's see. Um, we are getting close to this part. So I guess we are getting relatively close to that. When she comes back, again, it goes all over. And we watch whole sequences of the pink opaque of them,
Right.
this show. We see them meditating and the idea of this cheesy ass Mr. Melancholy that's up in the thing. And then the ice cream man is fucking teeth everywhere, rah, looking crazy, ice cream goo coming out of his eyes. And I don't fucking know. He sees himself in there maybe right when she comes back because she starts talking to him at the bar, or she finds him in the grocery store, which was super weird. It's all empty. The whole
Hmm.
fucking grocery store was empty, and she's
Yeah.
just standing there with what looked like a piece of raw meat in her hand, or like a steak or something. And
Yeah.
she's just like, "You remember me?" And he's, "What the fuck, Maddie? That's not my name." And okay, we're gonna go to the only place I can talk to you, which is a weird fucking club, which seems like a trans community club. The performers, the singing. I was listening to the lyrics, trying to see what I could pick up there, and even some of the performances.
Dude, there were full musical productions in this movie
Yeah,
where we just sat and watched somebody, a close up of somebody's face sing. And I liked the soundtrack. Like, holy horse dicks. There's a lot of scenes in this movie of just watching, no dialogue, just watching somebody walk or
that's where,
stare
yeah.
or
And that's where I
fuck.
was trying to pick up on the music. I'm like, is there something in the lyrics? And I think there were a few things I grabbed on, but I'd have to listen to it again because at first I almost turned my subtitles on. Like I couldn't understand. They were mumbling and shit and talking real low, which I believe is characteristic of somebody who is experiencing those emotions on a regular basis, that melancholy, that emptiness that has no real explanation. Like, why am I feeling this way? And they go to the bar, and this is probably my favorite sequence in the whole thing. It was trippy watching her talk with the fucking lights and circles and things moving. I was like, that's really cool. I guess I don't know if her is the proper pronoun, but she explains, first I got to ask you a question. He's like, where the fuck have you been? Everybody thinks you're dead. Blah, blah, blah. And she at first is like, hey, do you remember a long time ago when we used to watch this TV show called The Pink Opaque? And he's like, you mean the fucking greatest thing ever, that I used to come to your house all the time and we would watch it and it's everything. She's like, yeah, really think about those memories and think about those things. And this is where we start to see the past, where he's walking on the football field in more of the cami top with the skirt on, having some visions of being in the house with her and in the clothing. And then we get some memory, possibly of him rewatching it because he becomes an adult. But no, that comes a little bit after when he has like a family and shit, after he fully denies himself. She is back. I believe this is the last ditch effort before Owen completely succumbs to the melancholy for the rest of his life. Before he goes, because he has these moments where it's almost like that new self is going to emerge, that new thing is going to come out, and sometimes it's in a fucking bathroom cutting his own chest open and there's the pink opaque, the lights are shining out of him, but the actual show is so different. But I think he was so close at that time in life to being free that he remembers it as beautiful. It was this magical thing because he was almost there to being the true self, the true identity. He was so close, so he romanticized it. And we have a bad problem as a society of romanticizing our past, either bad or good. We think
Right.
bad things were worse. We think good things were better than they actually, most times, than they actually were. But that was the closest. And then Maddie showing up, but not saying, like, that's not my name anymore. And where
Your
were you?
your take on that is interesting because you are a much more positive person, I think, and you saw it as him like becoming this new thing. Like this was the moment where he became this new thing. I saw that moment the opposite. I saw it as him totally giving into his mental illness, and this is where he declined into mental illness, not ascended into this new being.
I think you just hit on a great fucking philosophical idea. Two sides, same coin.
Yeah,
You can't have one image without the other image. You know,
right.
I think those things would have come together. If he had fully come out, it would have been traumatic. It would have been a big change. But it, you know, caterpillars and butterflies and shit, like we watch it. Birth in any sense is violent. It's
Mhm.
never pretty and easy. Fucking giraffes fall out all fucking covered in placenta and barely can stand up on their legs. You know, it's never a beautiful thing throughout most of nature. So I think to your point, his given is the exact opposite of that joy that was there, that
Mhm.
almost. And that's what made the succumbing so disgusting and
Right.
hard to watch. I don't think he willingly gave in. I don't think the strength was there enough to go the other direction. He stood at the cliff and just died there, said, I will never jump. I can't jump, and just withered away in the sun. Probably watched people jump around him, you know, all these things, but he died right there on the cliff. And I think you're right. That's the moment. We get to see the moment.
Yeah.
And then when he's working at the fun center, when he cuts his chest open and sees the light after he fucking panics in the birthday party and is like, stop. And everyone just goes completely dead, to, which is weird. And again, maybe he did scream like that, but still got no attention. And I think this was like a representation of still being completely alone in the world. But he goes into the bathroom after that. And I think he got a taste of it, and it was just enough to remember that closeness. Like maybe he's on the edge of the cliff and just puts one foot over, and it's like, oh, I remember, but I can't, and goes back to this. But now Maddie's story, or used to be dead Maddie, says I bounced around. I changed my name. And I think this is, again, a great portrayal of you cannot run away from this shit. There's no getting away from the self. You cannot run away from yourself. It's impossible. Whatever is wrong on the inside is going to be with you wherever the fuck you go.
Yep.
And
Whoever you're with, wherever you go, whatever job you have.
it's going to
And I
be
thought it
there.
was interesting. He kept picking jobs where people go to have fun and
Right.
have entertainment and be happy, but he could never find that for himself.
And you wonder, though, are those places where we go to be happy and have entertainment or to hide from the things that we're suffering with?
I find that the darkest fucking corner of the universe is Chuck E. Cheese, dude.
Yeah.
It is. It's so gross right underneath this plastic veneer of fun.
Facade. Yeah.
Yeah. All the parents, you can see the dead in their eyes. They just spent $400 for bad pizza and a fucking
Right.
Five Night at Freddy's display and like
Right.
expensive ass video games they could play at home
And that's what it is, man. All to earn tickets to buy shit that's
to
super
buy shit you don't
ticketed.
need.
Yep.
Exactly. That's just junk, pure junk.
But you're right. He did surround himself with entertainment places, but the glow, everything's always flickering. It's he always wanted to be with that flicker, and it was the certain. And they fuck with you in this movie with the flicker, changes colors and does shit. And then right at the end, when Mr. Melancholy shows up, I really like that. I thought that was fucking creepy, dude.
That was the only horror element I found in the movie, really.
I was kind of bummed that this is when I did a search, a Google search that was, top fucking horror movies, whatever, the last 5 years or something like that. That a lot of these things that I've seen listed as horror, I'm like, what is horror? The apathy and the melancholy to me is true horror. But when you label something as a horror movie, I think people expect a certain element, and
They
maybe
want fun horror.
maybe we shouldn't have any expectations. I don't think it always has to be fun. I've watched some horror that leaves me for days feeling like garbage, like I've just been ran over. But I do feel
Requiem for a Dream. Do
Oh
you think that that's a horror movie?
yeah,
I think in a lot of ways
that's
it
the horror of addiction, dude, real addiction. And I love that Requiem shows it on all scales. It's not just street drugs. People are addicted to prescription. And Ellen Burstyn, dude, fucking slays in that role. I just want to be on television, all fucked up, and the fridge is coming after her. 100% a horror movie. So I think this is as well, but it was sold as a little more. I don't think Requiem was ever sold to me as a horror movie.
No, and
Whereas
this one
this
was.
was, yeah. Even the poster art is fucking poltergeist. A little kid sitting in front of a glowing TV with their hands on it or really close to it. I think it has horror elements, but yeah,
Think about that though,
all
from a marketing level, this movie's really hard to market. And I think that horror as a genre are people that are willing to experiment with their entertainment.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Horror people will give something a chance
9 times out of 10,
because once in a while you'll go on a ride
and it's
and
a
then
fucking
it's
wild.
really great. And you're like, wow, that was a really great ride.
With this,
This didn't do that for me.
with the social media age and the age of social media marketing and the influencer and things like that, word of mouth can carry. You put this in front of the right communities. You tell the algorithm, put this in front of the right community. I need this individual with these exact traits. These are their beliefs. That technology's out there. I mean, I found it that I can do it on my own, and I'm like, this is fucking crazy. But yeah, hyper focused marketing, and with TikTok and Snapchat and so face whatever social media people are on TikTok, X, whatever it's called. Now you can campaign in that way that will get the right people to make your money back without having to do bigger traditional magazines, billboards, all of that stuff. And A24 has built itself to a brand. Like you said, horror fans, will give a lot of things a chance. I know people who are like, anything A24 puts out, I'll watch it. Everything. Doesn't matter what it is. That is my flavor of tea. And I will support that. It's that identity thing again. It's like I'm an A24 person.
Right.
Yeah. But we get to, let's see. He rips his chest open in the thing. That's where I was going. Maddie used to be Maddie, explains after running for so many years, I figured out the only solution was to pay this guy to bury me alive. And I'm like, that is fucked up, dude. If
Yeah.
you are so dark, or maybe this was the disassociation where she brought it up, but you're in such a bad way that you want to be buried alive. 988, call that suicide prevention number. But I do think this is one of the better ways you can describe what that emptiness feels like, or what that, not knowing any sort of self, that disassociation feels like, is I would rather just be under the fucking ground and not have to feel this. That's awful. I hope nobody has to feel that. So she then explains she laid in there, this dude for $20, buried her. She pissed and shit all over herself, fucking cried, started punching. I'm not gonna lie, I immediately saw Uma Thurman. Coming Pai Mei. She's like, I clawed and scratched and eventually came my way out. And when I came out, Maddie was dead. That I thought was like very clearly a trans experience. I sat and I died. I died to my old self. And I need you to understand that. I need you to understand that you can't hold on to that old thing if you want to be the new thing. Imagine a butterfly trying to fly if it was trying to hold on to its, the chrysalis that was left behind. It would get fucking nowhere.
Mm.
Wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't do that. And I believe that's what this character is trying to say. I dug two holes for us out on the football field, and this is where we used to see the cami and the skirt and stuff like that. I dug a couple holes for us. I'm gonna bury you. We're going out there to get fucking buried, and you're gonna come out alive. I promise. This is in again. This was the I think the last moment where we see he chooses the suffering.
Mhm.
Says, I can't make the jump. I can't do it. And then Maddie's gone and fucking disappears. And that's where I was like, was Maddie in his head, the whole time? Like the other competing element or that piece of him that knew what had to happen in order for there to be freedom. The understanding said, I know what we got to do. I've seen it, and maybe somewhere in his subconscious. I mean, maybe I've seen too many movies like this, like High Tension, where there's two people, and it was always
Right.
one person at the same time.
Right.
But Maddie disappears, and he gets a family, and this painted another just fucking like the imagery in this is so good. I think people
Yes.
have to watch it on their own to pull what they want from it. But him just fucking apathetic to the world, dragging in a TV box that says LG, life's good, to give you the flicker.
Right.
Gotta have the bigger flicker. And he goes back to watch the show because she had sent him all these things. I don't know if he watched the finale when he was still talking to her or remembered the finale, how they both got buried alive in the TV show and then had to come back because Mr. Melancholy, or Marco and Polo were these two fucking look like Mac at Night from McDonald's.
Yeah, they totally did.
They got buried and their powers couldn't do it. But the way they had to come together was like their powers had to reconnect. And she's telling him the story, or they are telling him the story of the finale, which appears representative of their own life and his life and how they need to be together to be strong enough to beat these things. It won't happen independently. And he's dragging that shit show of a TV in there, the biggest TV he could get, and then he lays in front of it, and we see the original Pink Opaque. And it's little kids like, oh, hey, Mr. Ice Cream Man, don't be mean. That's the worst thing ever. Okay, we can do. And it was nothing at all. I think like his memories were supposed to be, or at
Right.
least how we took it in. So that's the romanticizing of the past that kind of leads us into tough places at times. However, it gets fucking weirder. I want to say, when does he throw up? His dad shoves him in the shower and he throws up all the fucking TV static. That
Yeah, that
happened
was
at some
weird.
point. He cuts himself open with the lights, her thing, and then the end is right around him walking home. But he worked at the fun center and
Yeah, he worked at the fun center and he walks out and he's apologizing for an outburst that
yeah,
he had, and no one's really paying attention to him, but
they
he's
don't
apologizing
care.
to
Yeah.
everybody. Yeah.
I'm okay now. I'm okay. And his physical appearance,
He
he's
looks
a
so
shell.
sunken. Yeah.
Yeah, everything is sunk in. And I think that was the melancholy maybe eating him from the inside,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Oof.
And it ends weird though. I know there's something else at the end. Like I could probably fucking dissect this movie 5 more times and learn
Yeah.
something new every time.
Right.
I don't think this is something to go into if you want an A, B, and C 1, 2, 3 act. It
Mhm.
does not play like that. It will not play like that.
Yeah.
This will leave you asking more questions, I believe, than you get answers to. Some of it I feel like was pretty on the nose. Let me see if there's anything else that I can. Oh, I did like the kid in the tornado. The kid
Mm.
birthdays for like the training of capitalism, like the joyous money. They got this little fat kid in there, I shouldn't say it, but he kid. And they got him in the thing, and they're like, yeah, get all the money. And it's like slow motion, from birth. This is what we are trained to do. And this is what the parents think the children need when really they need love, they need compassion. And then I did put spotlight on the trans community, especially after being buried alive. The old self. I think there was even a quote there. Is the ba, 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 where did you go now? Where did spotlight go? Being born anew with the old self washed away in the rain. And they talked about that a few times. Like, I came up out of this thing and I was no longer Maddie.
Mhm.
I was this brand new thing. And then we talked about that, not being able to run from your problems. Some of the lines, though, and that's the thing, is a lot of this felt selfish. It was inward. It was all about me, 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 me. How the fuck the world is affecting me. How is everything affecting me? And the line was, this isn't how life's supposed to feel. This isn't normal. This isn't normal. And then I wrote my own thing. We need to help each other not feel these levels of suffering.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is to people to feel there is no true normal, but I do understand the feeling of not feeling normal. I think there's something outside of that. We have to help each other and be able to talk through these things. Whereas some of this, it just felt like everything is about kind of me fighting melancholy his whole life with no real companionship. He releases a small taste of his true self or the romantic remembrance, the pink opaque, which may be his internal gender identity struggle. I put a question mark. I don't know. Those were just some of my thoughts. The moments in life, that's what I liked when came so close to being free from that. And I think so many people do. It's not just this struggle, it's all struggles in life where you feel so close, but you just can't make that jump because you're scared. You'd rather be, change is scary. It's scary for all of us, but you'd rather be, in the suffering that as opposed to something that you might not. Did Maddie ever really exist? I don't know. And then I think that's about it. Yeah, the I did question at first before I thought Maddie might not have been real. If her breaking free outside of the pink opaque was her accepting herself, but then when as a lesbian, or she seemed like she wasn't really sure. She's like, um his response that fucking haunted me, dude. She's like, who do you like? He's like, the pink opaque. That was scary.
Yeah.
um and then finding a home in a fictional world because you perceive the world around you doesn't understand you. Engage with their emotions, understanding. And that's the thing, is human nature in itself is dichotomous. It's split. It's two sides to each coin. You can't have fucking warm without cold. You can't have, dark without light. What would you call it if you never knew darkness? And it was, you wouldn't be like, oh, it's light, because it just is. That's what it is all the time. There's nothing to compare it to.
Right.
That is the human condition. It is dichotomous. And sometimes I think labels make that even worse.
Yeah.
They can make it worse. At other times, I don't know, dude. I feel like I'm fucking getting to a point in my life where it's hard to talk to people because I'm like, these ideas sound bigger, but at the same time, for me to say anything else, I know it's untrue. Like it just doesn't seem right. Because I did for the last, I don't know, however long I've been thinking about this shit for. I have tried to poke holes in it. That's the first thing I do with any new idea, is I try to break it. I try my hardest to find holes in it, to find, the loopholes and all that stuff. But human nature is dichotomous. The universe is dichotomous. There seems to be a two sides to everything, no matter what, in nature. I was talking to two of my brothers lost their mom recently. And I was talking to my one brother about it. It's hard. I don't give a fuck who you are. If you have a good relationship with your parent, that's gonna be a really hard one to lose. And I told him, and I believe it. I was like, that is the evidence that the love was true. If your grief is real, because as soon as you become vulnerable enough to love, you are accepting grief. It is going to come, no
Mm.
matter what. At some point, it's coming, but you get to know the joy of love. But too often, we only want to know the good side. We don't want to accept the bad side that comes with all of that. We don't want to know those things, and that sucks, because this movie's a good example of like the me, 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 me in a lot of ways. I don't think it gives. I wish it would have given more of an out. There are ways, even later in life. Don't show that you give up once and fucking that's the end of everything. With these big, heavy ideas of melancholy, I would like for people to start presenting, at least in some ways, the idea of hope, and not as some fake hope, not somebody comes in and fucking rescues you and, all of a sudden things are magical. But hey, like I fought through this, and I think there have been some good movies that have addressed shit like this and done it well. But this one just leaves it up to you to kind of pull away from it. And that's when I got to the very end of it. I was, where did I, as a whole, weird, surreal idea with a lot going on at times. I like the lead actor a lot and have enjoyed his performances. Hits on big issues, but never feels like it fully fleshes one out. It feels like someone's therapy film project. I'm not sure it was ever meant to be more than ambiguous. It's not for everyone, for sure, but I'm sure it will be talked about for a bit. And I agree with that. You know, there's the movies that come and they go and they have big ideas. And I think this, for certain people, will be the exact right movie at the exact right time. Like for some people, Donnie Darko, for other people, Halloween or The Crow or fucking Psycho or something else, you know. And so severing those things, like that's a hard one, dude. The Crow for me to be like, yeah, but I don't want to carry any of it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard thing, and but it's something I'm working on to not be necessarily a movie guy. You know, where people are like, "Oh, this is my friend Joe. He knows fucking everything about movies." Is that all I am? Like, am I?
Right.
Yeah. So let's get into rating this. Out of how many glowing TVs? You've got five glowing TVs. Out of how many do you give I Saw the TV Glow?
It's really hard for me, dude, because I've been thinking about it this entire time. I'm glad I feel like we unlocked some things in this movie
Good.
for me
Good.
while we were having this conversation, because I honestly didn't know what the fuck we were going to talk about this entire time. Um, I did not enjoy this movie. I would not recommend this movie. It
Right.
is a fucking mind-numbing chug to get through, I thought.
Fair.
And there, like you said, there's no message of hope at the end. So there's not even anything for me to say, if you get through it, you might find something.
Right.
I say every movie has potential to be an experience. The movie I hate the worst is somebody's favorite movie. Uh,
Right.
you know, and my favorite movie is not necessarily everybody's cup of tea. So movies are meant to be subjective. Movies are meant to be talked about.
Right.
If you have a friend like Pops Ghostly over here who you can sit down with and have a good conversation about a film and really deep dive into it and talk about like the things that were below you know what they showed you on the screen, then maybe you can pull something out of this movie and maybe it'll spur some conversation. But if you just want to watch a movie like I do to escape and relax and have fun, there's nothing there for you in this film. So it makes it almost impossible to rate, you know?
You
Like
gotta do it, dude. You
it's
got to
it's
do it. We show up here, we commit to the ghosts who join us for this show. We commit.
all right. Well, I'm gonna give this a 2 then.
Right on. Right on.
It's not enjoyable, but it also wasn't for me, and I understand that. Beautifully shot, beautifully acted. Um, just not for me.
And that is totally fair to you. I'm
Yeah.
kind of with you there. I don't think this was meant for me at all. I dug a little bit to find those connections. The problem I have, and I think I said it here, is that I don't, there were so many problems going on at once, so many things being talked about where it's never seen to its logical fruition. It's like, you know, yes, bad parent relationships are bad. This is bad. That is bad. But it was like everything kind of one right after another. So if you're not digging, what are you gonna? And actually, I didn't have to dig far. It was pretty on the surface for me. It wasn't super deep or anything like that. But at the same time, I'll say it the last time, it felt like a therapy project. And I hope the people that put it together, you know, got it out. And maybe this is going to be therapeutic for people who connect with it closer, people in the trans community. I think that is the audience for this. A younger generation in the trans community might be able to find more. And I could probably ask some of my peoples and be like, yo, what the fuck do you take away from it? Like maybe I'm missing something. And that would be cool. Next time I'm down there, I'll ask around and see if I can find something more. I am going with a 3 out of 5. There's a lot I liked, a lot I didn't like. Right there, middle of the fucking road for me. A little bit above middle of the road, probably just because I like the kid that the lead actor. I've always enjoyed him a ton, and the cinematography and stuff. I was impressed quite a few times with the visual. I was like, that's fucking tricky, dude. You're moving this way and things are spinning the other way, but it's crystal and you got some weird stuff happening on the face. And yeah, it was really good in that way. So 3 out of 5 for me. As far as the mindfulness portion goes, I don't even think we got to bring anything outside of everything we've talked about already leading up to this point. If I could put a cap on something, if I could highlight something, it would be a lack of community and a lack of understanding, and we've forgotten, and I don't know that we ever truly knew. You know what I mean? I don't know all of human history, but I believe maybe at some points we understood a little closer that we were all connected. We were community people. We lived, in bands of traveling people, but we stayed with our fucking people, and built that around you. You had grandparents that lived in one house and aunts that lived 2 miles down the road and fucking cousins that lived over there, and all these people. We stayed relatively close. We're losing that. I feel we are in some ways. Everybody's moving. I got a brother over here, way over here, hours away, countries away. And that if just see each other as human beings, recognize we all collectively start right there with each other. Try not to, because there's people out there in the world that I feel are truly suffering with what this movie portrays. And I think it does that good. Like you said, it makes you feel empty. It makes you feel awful for having to watch this person experience. That's happening in the world right now. People are sitting there feeling that fucking awful.
Yeah.
Every day. They're your neighbors. They're your fucking friends. We barely even see our neighbors anymore. You might move in next to somebody, not even know the motherfucker, move out in 10 years and you never met them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are people truly hurting like this in the world. And if you can, just look at them like a human being and just say, I see you as nothing more than a person right now. Are you doing okay, man?
Correct.
That's it. Whatever. Are you okay? I just want you to know I acknowledge you as a human being, because that empty all on your own feeling. So that's it. I think we talked mindfulness all through the entirety of this thing. And I think it was a great opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then next week, what do we got coming up next week?
Gonna lighten things up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll tell you, as far as feel good movies go, next week is a feel good movie compared to this.
I don't remember. I really need to know. What's next week?
Oh, Motel Hell.
Oh, yeah. Oh, right. Oh, Farmer Vincent.
Farmer Vincent.
You want to talk about a movie I escaped into a lot in the 90s when it would show up on the midnight movies on Fox Channel 50 or some shit,
Yeah.
Always come on. This, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. And you're right. This is just grab a bucket of popcorn. We're going to have a good time and go on a splattery, fun, ridiculous ride. It'll be cool. Yeah. So until next week, ghosts, I have been Pops Ghostly.
And I'm Hamish. Anus flap. Nope.
Anus flap?
Anus. Hamish. Hamish Anus Ham.
Fuck. Gross, dude.
No! No! No!
Extravaganza.